Most people, when they talk about the history of economic thought, jump straight to Adam Smith, Karl Marx, David Ricardo, or maybe Aristotle if they paid attention in school. But hidden in the medieval world is a quieter truth, one Western history rarely teaches. Nearly 1,000 years before modern economics even had a vocabulary, a Muslim scholar warned of something that still echoes through every financial crisis today. His message was simple but devastating. When money loses its moral compass, societies rot from the inside out. And judging by the world we live in today, Al-Ghazali might have understood us better than we understand ourselves. Welcome to the Financial Historian, where money, power, and history collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. To understand Al-Ghazali, one of the most influential thinkers of the Islamic Golden Age, you have to imagine a world that looked both familiar and foreign. The year is around 1100 CE. Europe is fragmented, poor, and still crawling out of the wreckage of the early Middle Ages. Castles crumble, kings fight over scraps, and cities are barely hanging on. But the Islamic world? It stretches from Spain to Persia. Wealthy, crowded, sophisticated, its cities are the beating heart of global commerce. Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo, not ruins, not ancient memories, but financial supercities? Caravans rumble across deserts carrying silk, spices, silver, and ideas. Libraries overflow. Scholars debate philosophy, medicine, astronomy. Markets buzz with traders shouting prices, bargaining, weighing goods, exchanging silver dinars. It is a world rising, but a world that looks in many ways like ours. And in this world, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali emerges, part philosopher, part jurist, part critic, part moral psychologist, a man who could explain the purpose of the soul and the purpose of a currency system without blinking. Born in 1058 in Persia, Al-Ghazali rose quickly through intellectual ranks. By 35, he held one of the most prestigious academic positions in the Islamic world. But prestige wasn't what made him dangerous. It was his willingness to question everything. He saw a society with expanding wealth, yet shrinking meaning, growing markets, yet growing inequality, more luxury, but less honesty. He saw a civilization getting rich faster than it was getting wise. And so he began asking a radical question. What happens when a civilization becomes wealthy faster than it becomes ethical? To answer it, he turned toward money, not as a mathematician, but as a moral psychologist. Where Aristotle saw money as a convenience, where modern economists treat it as data, Al-Ghazali saw money as a mirror with no value of its own, reflecting the trust, ethics, and intentions of a society. Gold had power, yes. Silver had prestige. But money was ultimately a facilitator, a tool that allowed people to build, trade, and cooperate. Its value came entirely from trust, and from that simple truth, he formed one of he. To Al-Ghazali, the economy wasn't a numbers game. It was a trust system. And trust, he believed, was far more fragile than coins. This is where his second major insight comes in. Speculation destroys trust, not investment, not entrepreneurship, not risk-taking to build something real. Those were noble. He condemned speculative manipulation, merchants, who created artificial shortages, drove up prices, or exploited crises to make profit without contribution. He saw speculation for what it is, profit built on someone else's suffering, and he didn't hide his disgust. Whoever profits from the suffering of others, he wrote, profits from corruption. To him, corruption wasn't an event. It was a contagio. Once a few people cheat, others feel justified to cheat. Once rulers manipulate, merchants manipulate. Once institutions lose integrity, everyone follows. In Al-Ghazali's world, and just like ours, corruption at the top trickled downward, poisoning the economy from palace to marketplace. He noted a pattern. A society can survive poverty. It cannot survive corruption, because corruption destroys the very thing markets rely on. Trust. Then came his most explosive insight, the dangers of state manipulation of money. Medieval rulers often diluted the gold content in coins to stretch their budgets, an early form of stealth inflation. Al-Ghazali condemned it outright. Debasing currency, he said, was theft, not metaphorical theft, literal theft. Stealing the value of people's money, eroding trust in institutions, weakening the poorest the most. He believed a ruler who manipulated currency was not clever. He was a traitor to his people, and he predicted something astonishing. If rulers manipulated currency too often, citizens would abandon their own money and begin using stronger foreign currencies, a prediction that later came true in Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Argentina, Lebanon, and many more. Every single one followed Al-Ghazali's script. But Al-Ghazali's brilliance wasn't limited to currency. He understood human nature. He saw the psychological forces behind economic collapse. People hoard out of fear. They speculate out of greed. They cheat when they think they can get away with it. They manipulate money because money is easy to manipulate. They rationalize unethical profit because everyone else is doing it. By the time a society normalizes exploitation, collapse is already in progress. This led him to his third major insight. You cannot fix an economy without fixing incentives. Laws matter. Markets matter. Policies matter. But behind every system sit people, emotional, ambitious, fearful, and self-interested. Unless a society aligns incentives toward productive, honest behavior, it will drift toward corruption, instability, and eventually collapse. Al-Ghazali argued that wealth wasn't inherently bad, it was simply incomplete without responsibility. A strong society forms when individuals contribute more than they extract, and a weak society emerges when, now step into the 21st century, and watch how every one of Al-Ghazali's warnings comes alive. We live in a world where money moves faster than meaning. Wealth inequality mirrors medieval extremes. Markets reward speculation over contribution. Institutions lose trust year after year. Inflation quietly erodes purchasing power. Bubbles grow, burst, and grow again. Corruption is normalized as strategy. It almost feels like the 11th century, but louder, faster, global. Al-Ghazali's critiques are no longer philosophy. They read like modern financial analysis. His attack on hoarding mirrors today's billionaire wealth gaps, offshore accounts, and corporate tax shelters. His attack on speculation reflects housing crises, crypto collapses, stock manipulation, and shadow banking. His attack on currency debasement echoes modern debates over inflation, central banks, fiat money, and institutional trust. His belief that trust is the foundation of prosperity explains why some nations, with stable institutions, have become wealthy, while others remain trapped in cycles of money printing and crisis. But the most important parallel is psychological. People today behave almost exactly as he described. Fear leads to hoarding. Greed leads to speculation. Manipulation leads to short-term profit but long-term collapse. He would look at our world and at runaway debt, speculative mania, institutional distrust, political polarization, and widening inequality, and repeat the same words he wrote 1,000 years ago. Where justice is lost, prosperity cannot remain. Economies do not collapse because numbers stop adding up. They collapse because people stop trusting each other, because incentives reward the wrong behaviors, because corruption becomes normal, because institutions fail to uphold fairness.